I'm Brent Stafford, and this is RegWatch by RegulatorWatch.com. Over the years, the anti-vaping movement honed the tactics of creating mayhem and misery for those who rely on vaping as a tool for harm reduction. For vapers, wading through lies and half-truths have long been the daily norm. Yet the mendacity seems to be getting worse as ideologues in the war on vaping capitalize on recent health scares to plot new attacks intended to stamp out vaping for good. Joining us today on RegWatch is Phil Busardo, celebrated YouTube show host and co-host and a prolific vaping reviewer. Phil is going to share his aggravation over the mind-bending hypocrisy of the anti-vaping movement, and we hope to learn what he thinks could be a winning strategy for vaping. Phil, thanks for coming back on RegWatch.
Absolutely. It is good to be back with you, Brent.
It's good to see you too, and thank you for having me. Was it on the Smokers show or was it?
No, I think you were on the DP show.
That's right.
You were on the DP show. So we have all the issues worked out now. Everything's ironed out.
We're rocking. We're on fire.
Okay, because between whether I come on the show with Dimitri, I come on the show with you, or I come on the show with Patrick, there's always technical difficulties at the very beginning, and I'm wondering. I'm going to start to take it personal. I'm going to start to think it's my fault.
Well, I'll be happy to blame you. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, everybody else does. So yeah,
so
it's
Phil,
good to be back with you, Brent.
Oh, no. I mean, it's awesome. It really is. And I mean, to that point, you're one of the big names in vaping content. So quickly walk our audience through your background and, what got you started. Now, I know tasteyourjuice.com is kind of a portal for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That's kind of been my baby from the start. Now, the YouTube video started before the website, and I have a timeline, and I should have pulled it up. I'll see if I can while we're talking about this. But the website came a little bit after the reviews because I wanted a place to store everything, right? Not just the reviews, but other information about vaping. So the website really is it's a plethora of information about vaping. There's a vaper's glossary, how to get started, where to get started. All of my reviews are posted on the website. Bill Tarling is doing a fantastic job of posting vaping related news articles on the website. You may know this show, Brent. It's called Regulator Watch. That gets posted on the website. So there's a lot. I mean, this website is years and years of data, of photos, of posts. Just years of information on that website. One of the most important things on that website, though, is still to this day I consider most important is the success stories, right? So those are little emails that were written to me, thanking me for having maybe a little bit of a part in helping people, either get off the cigarettes or stay off the cigarettes. So whenever anybody sends me, one of those emails, they wind up right there. After I get their approval to post it, of course.
Have you noticed a change in terms of, say, I don't want to say the number and quantity, but maybe that's the case. Has there been a tone change in terms of the people that have come on and said they've quit? Or is there less quitters posting?
That's a really good question. And I wished I had the data. I really do wish I had the data. The data might exist. I don't know. Right, because Dimitri's really the numbers guy and the data guy. I get the data when I see it, and then it gets explained to me. Then I understand it. But what I would love to see is the number of people who have transitioned to vaping from smoking successfully. Right, in the year 2006, 2007, 2008. I want to see that bar chart. I want to see what it really, really looks like. Because there was a heyday back in vaping when people were quitting left and right. And I knew this because I would walk into events and shows and people would just come up to me and, thank me. Thank you so much. You helped me get off cigarettes. And that's one of the greatest feelings in the world, Brent. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world, knowing that you had some part in helping somebody get off of cigarettes and onto vaping, the tobacco harm reduction aspect of vaping.
Absolutely. So let's walk them through. You've got your YouTube channel, which is P. Busardo, and you've got about 135,000 subscribers, I think around 40 million views. So and 800 videos, almost 900, 880 videos that are up there. I trolled you a little bit before I had you come on, obviously. And now mostly reviews, and you dabble a little bit into other things, but it's a review heavy site, correct?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a review heavy site. I mean, that's where it started. And you know, like every time I post a review now, people say, "Oh, you still review?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've actually never gone anywhere." The problem became all of the traveling that Dimitri and I were doing, right? So traveling for Inikin or going, overseas for Inikin or going overseas to take part in events, whether it be the Hall of Vape or Vop Expo, all of these events, and they wanted to have us there, and we're honored to be there, honored to be a part of that, and when you do all that traveling, it's difficult to do that and the reviews, right? So the number of things that I was able to review definitely decreased. Now, when that happens, Brent, in this world, in this game, when you can't provide content on like a weekly or a biweekly basis, your views they go down, right? They go down, and also the number of companies that want to send you product that goes down. But I mean, I'm kind of, I'm not that I'm back, but I have time because we're not doing the traveling. Hopefully that will pick up again, right? But so I have been doing a few more videos, and when I do get product right now, I am able to do a review for it.
Yeah, and it seems that obviously there's just been an overall, I guess it's a double thing. It's a double hit. I do believe that YouTube has been throttling views on vaping content across the board. And then you've got people that are kind of a little bit kind of vaped out, whether it's because they've been, what's the right word? What is the right word? They're just kind of like, they've kind of lost their fight, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally understand that, and I see that more and more in the industry. I mean, I feel it. I feel it every day. There's times where I have to turn to Dimitri, and Dimitri has to say, he'll tell me, we got to keep going, Phil. We got to keep going. There's more people who are smoking. We got to convert. I'll have to do that for him on days. So it has been really good to have that guy by my side, because I think we keep each other, going.
Yeah,
But
that's and just for everybody, I mean, Demetrius Agrafodius has been on our show a couple times too as well. And this is obviously Phil and Demetrius, the Smokers Show, a vape show dedicated to smokers. Now,
yes.
this is relatively new. What was the impetus for this show?
Well, I wouldn't say it's relatively new. We've been doing that for about a year and a half now. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
we're in our
Okay.
we're in our second season. Um, the goal of that show, it, it it, um, it's really to talk to smokers. It's to because that's always been my problem, my challenge, something that I think about on a daily basis is how do we reach more smokers? And it's a huge challenge, and it's even more of a challenge these days because everything that you see in social media. By the way, I took a note here. I'm angry about something. Everything you see, well, not necessarily in social media, but mainstream media is very vape negative, right? So that was another goal of the show. So the goal was get smokers involved, show a different side of vaping, take the terms and the information and kind of break it down and make it easy for people to understand. Even as far as like some of the negative news stories, break those down too. Break down the myths, tell the truth, right? And that kind of leads me to the thing that I'm angry about because as I was waiting to come on the show, what I saw on the screen was the Whole Truth logo,
Right.
right? And that just makes me angry. It makes me angry because I'm seeing it here on social media with you, but that logo should have been seen by the entire country and your country as well.
Yeah, it's hard not to believe that a full national television campaign back in 2018 would have not made a difference.
And really, that campaign would have run right into a volley.
Yeah, no, it would have. You're right. 2019, actually, that's right. It was the fall of 2018. So everybody know to understand. We've talked about this at some time, but working with Demetrius and Fig and Matt Cully, and you were involved obviously in consulting on this whole thing. We'd come up with a plan to get our message, which is the whole truth about vaping, which is like all the science in very tight, short, easy bites into professional 30-second television spots and get it running on CNN. And we went through a process where we brought in a major supporter who's a huge name in the business, and they funded us getting it all the way up to the point where it was about to like have to pull the trigger, and the trigger didn't get pulled, which was too bad. And we had to cancel media, about $1 million worth of TV media that would have ran in February of 2019, and the program would have put us in a position where when a valley hit, we would have already been out there with the whole truth, and we could have like run the program again, just bought another series of ads and been in market counter programming against eValley.
Yeah. Well, like when eValley hit, you had Greece. I mean, Greece got Dr. Farsalinos on the TV right away, right? There were you know, from what I understand, there was mainstream media, you know, counteracting what eValley was talking about in the UK as well, because UK, we know they're very, very supportive of vaping, right? So, you know, you had that going on in Greece, you had that going on in the UK, and what happened in the US? It was just a disaster from the CDC, which we'll talk about later because they are now to me the ZDC. Okay.
What's the Z stand for?
Zero. Zero disease control.
Right.
Zero. Yeah. Yeah.
So the CDC, I mean, the CDC to me is the heart of evil now. I mean, I consider them that nothing that comes out of their mouth can be trusted.
Nothing. No, I was just saw something the other day. Now they're saying that, well, it doesn't live on surfaces as much as we thought it did. We're talking about COVID, right? And now, you know, the masks are going to help you. And now we think that it lives in the air for 3 hours. You know, look, I know Trump is a really negative point in people's minds right now. And I know people just love to blame him for everything. But why there isn't an outcry, right? People screaming and blaming what happened in the United States with the CDC is beyond me. I can't figure that out for the life of me. Why he's kind of getting the blame, and the group, the organization that's designed to prevent this from happening, there's no heat on them. I don't get it.
So for all of our audience, you know, we haven't really programmed in a bunch of COVID conversation here today, but, you know, it's going to happen. And I don't imagine that we aren't going to be able to talk about the riots either. And the thing is that this is all public health, even including the riots we're going to talk about, because I do think it's a must. And, you know, vaping's biggest enemy in the United States of America is public health. And if you aren't willing to look at the other things that public health are interacting with and see if they are and test the veracity of their statements there, because we know the veracity of their statements when it comes to vaping. It's just all garbage that comes out. So, okay, so let's walk through this. So you mentioned that 1 minute the masks are good, 1 minute the masks are bad. Next minute you have to wear masks. Now you don't, and then now you do, and you're bouncing around. And I mean, this is something that's pretty important. And not only that, but pretty basic. So you would think that the world's preeminent public health organization charged with protecting the public from infectious disease would have a pretty much down pat answer on whether or not a face mask is good or bad to use during a pandemic. So for them to not have an answer for that, I mean, that in and of itself means they should all be fired. And then to go back and forth like they did is insane. Then the surfaces. 2 weeks ago, the CDC came out and said that, well, oops, it looks like the coronavirus cannot be transmitted very easily on surfaces at all. And so that was the fundamental reason why you're washing your hands 15 times a day. Yeah. That's why you're worried about touching the keypads and doorknobs.
Yeah. Not to mention that my parents are like showering with their groceries. Okay. I mean, you know, that too is just going on.
So let me walk you through today, Phil. You might not have got the news today. This is the news
you
today.
Know what? I'm going to be honest with you, Brent. There are days where I cannot watch the news.
Oh,
I have too much anxiety from it. Right. I really do. I really do. All right. So go ahead.
Well, this is deserving, anxiety deserving. All right.
Terrific.
So today, the World Health Organization came out and said asymptomatic spread of coronavirus is very rare.
Are
Now,
you
you have
kidding?
to keep in mind with this is that over the course of this entire time, research from France, research from Italy, research from China, research from the US, never has it ever been contested. I've never seen any other number that says that the 80% of people who contract coronavirus are asymptomatic. That has not been, they have not, they don't mention in here because that's,
Right.
would be bad to remind people of, but 80% of the people who contract coronavirus are asymptomatic, which means that they don't even know they have the disease.
Yeah.
So think about that. If you have the flu and the one, and just as an example, say you have the flu and the one example of having the flu is throwing up. So if you don't throw up, you don't know you have the flu. And
Right.
that also means that you're not experiencing any pain or any of the bad side effects. Like if you have a
Sure.
bad side effect, that's a symptom. So if
Sure.
80% of the people who've contracted coronavirus don't even know they have the disease, right? That means, wow, pretty good. But everybody's been saying, yeah, but it's those people that don't know that they have it. When they're out in the wild, they're spreading it everywhere. That's why we have to lock everybody down, right?
Right.
So this is now the WHO. Coronavirus patients without symptoms aren't driving the spread of the virus.
So doesn't that tell you that the lockdowns are unnecessary? I mean, isn't that what they're saying right there? Kind of, right? Because
Well,
I mean,
I'll
if you know
allow
you
you to
have
make your own decision on that.
yeah,
World Health Organization officials said Monday, casting doubt on concerns by some researchers that the disease could be difficult to contain due to asymptomatic infections. Well, yeah, some researchers. I mean, they're contradicting their own statements. Some people, particularly young and otherwise healthy individuals who are infected by the coronavirus, never develop symptoms or only develop mild symptoms. Others might not develop symptoms until days after they were actually infected. Preliminary evidence from the earliest outbreaks indicated that the virus could spread from person-to-person contact, even if the carrier didn't have symptoms. But WHO officials now say that while asymptomatic spread can occur, it is not the main way it's being transmitted. Quote, from the data we have, it still seems to be rare that an asymptomatic person actually transmits onward to a secondary individual, a doctor from WHO, who's the head of the emerging diseases. She said at a news conference briefing, the United Nations agency's headquarters in Geneva, she said, quote, it's very rare.
it's very rare.
Very rare. And let me just get through the last of this. Government responses.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. Well, there's more because government responses should focus on detecting and isolating infected people with symptoms. That's where our focus should be, and tracking anyone who might have come into contact with them. She acknowledged that some studies have indicated asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic spread in nursing homes and household settings, blah. Here, let's get down to the meat of this. More research and data are needed to truly answer. How much do we hear that from, you know what?
We'll get to that.
Vaping could cause
We'll
brain
get to that.
damage.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So here's the last quote I need to read from her. We have a number of reports from countries who are doing very detailed contact tracing, she said. They're following asymptomatic cases. They're following contacts, and they're not finding secondary transmission onward. It's very rare.
It's very rare.
So
So in other words, let's paraphrase this. If you're sick, stay home. If you came into contact with somebody who's sick, stay home. Everybody else, you can go out and be normal. And by the way, world economy is saved.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. You know,
Everything from the forecasts of 2 million dead Americans down to the masks, down to it spreads on surfaces, down to you can transmit it from person to person if you've got it and don't know you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, look, it's still a terrible thing. There's still a lot of people that are dying. But I still think that it could have been handled differently. And you know, we could have protected people and kept the economy rolling. But that's just a personal opinion. You know, and you kind of led into something that we had talked about before, where this may and might and could and maybe could. how is this becoming news these days? And so I had told you that I listen to I tell Google to tell me the news every morning, and then ask it to tell me the news on vaping. And there was this news article that came through, and it went. I'm going to paraphrase it, right? It went something like this. It said, um, "We believe that vaping could spread COVID. It may happen." So that's the way it starts, and then it ends with more data and research is needed to prove this. How is that even a news story at that point? All that does is brings fear into people unnecessarily without any data. Without any data. That's like me telling you, right, that I believe, Phil Busardo believes that there are flying blue elephants somewhere. Maybe. Now, I got to do more research to prove that data, right? But there's the news story. Go ahead and run with it. Run with it. I don't understand what's going on anymore, Brent. I really don't.
Yeah, and it starts with the researchers sometimes too as well, because the actual press releases that go out are pretty strong, and then they put the caveat somewhere deep down. It's even worse to the extent where the researcher will say in the press release, will say, hey, we don't have enough studies and this and that, but this is what we think. And then when the researcher is interviewed, they go straight overboard and they're like, oh yeah, man, vaping's bad. And you're just like,
yeah, oh, yeah. And even when it's not bad, the CDC is the perfect example. Like when EVALI started, and I still hate calling it EVALI, but when that started, it was just vaping. Vaping was bad. Vaping was bad. Vaping is killing people. Vaping is killing people, right? And that was so loud, and it was so in the news, and it was so in mainstream media, and all that messaging coming out of CDC. And when they proved what we knew all the while, that it was illicit THC cartridges that were cut with vitamin E acetate. So it was drug dealers trying to get more money out of their product. That's what it was. That's what it was, right? That's what it was.
That's what it was.
Okay. And where was that in the news? Why was that not all over the news just as loud as when vaping was killing people?
I've got just some shots up here of outbreak of lung injury associated with e-cigarettes user vaping. That was right at the very start. This is the CDC stuff. I'll just let this play for a little bit. It's one of my favorite, sets of videos. I mean, it's beyond belief. Just to use a very grotesque term. I guess it is evening time, and we are on YouTube. So, I mean, the media have a hard on for vaping in terms of killing it.
They really do. I mean, media, CDC, public health. They all have a hard on for vaping. And I don't know. I don't know if it's because it looks like cigarettes, if it's because it's taking tax revenues away from cigarette sales, if it's taking monies away from big pharma, or if it's all of the above. Because I can't imagine, I can't believe that this is all about the children, that we got to save and protect the children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right? The children. I mean, we can talk about that for a while too.
Yeah, well, what do you think about that? Why are you suspect with regards to it being about the children?
Well, I mean, okay. So I don't know if you have the slides ready to go with the ice pops.
I do.
Good. Because look, if we have laws in the United States that say you cannot have an alcoholic beverage until you're 21 years old, this, what you see on the screen, is allowed, right? This is okay. I can't imagine how this is okay, because this to me is just as bad, if not worse, marketing to children than anything I've ever seen from vaping. I mean, they look like frozen puff bars.
And look at this ad.
Oh, look at that, right? So, and you know what? It should be okay. It should be okay, because once again, we have a legal drinking age, right? Well, now we have a legal smoking age. or vaping age. It's called Tobacco 21. It's called T21. And this has been my argument for a while now. If we have Tobacco 21 in place, if we have T21 in place, which tells teens, tells the younger generation that it is illegal for you to have or purchase a vape product or a tobacco product or a cigarette or anything, right? Then why are flavors not allowed? Why are flavors being banned? Who does the ban affect? It doesn't affect the kids because we already have T21 in place, right?
Yes.
So who does it affect? It affects the adults. It affects the adults. And as we take away these flavors and these choices for adults to remain on vaping, to remain excited about vaping, because I always said that like tobacco flavors are really good for conversion, right? But flavors are good for sustainability, to keep you interested in vaping.
That makes sense.
Right?
Yes.
So, as if you're taking the flavors away, because here's another thing that drives me crazy, is that there are concerns, but there's been no proof about the gateway effect, right? That they're concerned that, well, vaping is going to lead children to cigarettes, right? If the only thing, because look, kids are going to experiment. We know this, right? Because I truly don't believe that kids are using these products for flavors. I think they're using them for the buzz or the head pop that they get from them. Okay, the high nicotine salt liquids. But if the only thing that's available for them to experiment with tastes like a cigarette, isn't that going to lead to the gateway effect even more? Aren't we training the next generation to like the taste of tobacco? And as we're doing that, as we have told people all of their lives, this is what I've heard: smoking is bad for you. You should quit. Smoking is bad for you. You should quit. Smoking is bad for you. It's going to kill you. You should quit. I found something that works right there. There it is. Everything else I tried, all the normal cessation products I've tried, haven't worked. This did. Now what you're telling me, after all this work for me to get off of cigarettes, you're telling me that I got to go back to the very same flavor that you told me to get away from. You're forcing me back to that flavor. It's insane what's going on. It is absolutely insane what's going on. I just don't understand it, Brent.
So you're close to, obviously, the consumer. I mean, when you're doing reviews, obviously that's your audience. And you have a lot of touch points with vapers from conventions and all that kind of stuff. What's your sense of them in terms of why they think it's happening? Well, like, what are they telling you? What are you hearing in terms of the frustrations from the average vapor?
The one thing that's been breaking my heart recently is, because I have a lot of friends in New York. I mean, that's where I was before I was in Florida. I was in Rochester, New York. I've got personal friends who vape, right, coming to me saying, where do I get my flavors? Where do I get my fruit flavors? They really took them out of the store. They really took my flavors away. Oh my God. I really can't get the product. Sometimes it's like, they don't believe it until like it really happens. And I always said that. I mean, years ago, when I used to give talks at vape shows, I said, everybody's going to be complacent. Everybody's going to be okay. And everybody's going to, not get involved with advocacy or anything. And then they're going to take it all away from you. And when they take it all away from you, you're going to stomp your feet and you're going to say, how do I stop this? You can't now. Right. But I mean, there's like what I call the innocents, right? Just the people who, they're not involved in advocacy. They don't go watch YouTube videos. They're not on Facebook all about vaping. They don't know what tasteyourjuice.com or P. Busardo. They don't know any of that. All they know is that they don't smoke anymore because of some peach flavor or because of some watermelon flavor or because of some bakery flavor. That's all they know. That's all they care about. And all of a sudden, they can't get that anymore.
Well, there is no doubt that flavor is important. I mean, I'm very finicky about the flavors.
It's proven time and time again. It's proven, Brent.
So, all right, let's talk about what kind of a disaster happens here. So, I mean, there's been three, definitive, things that have happened in the last 18 months. There was the epidemic of teen vaping, which almost, still is actually, killing vaping. Then you've got the vaping-related lung illness that our comrades at the CDC titled EVALI when they needed to turn it into actually something, and they turned it into EVALI. And then even my mom, like the day or two after CDC came out with the Valley, and my mom, I'm on the phone with her talking. She goes, "Hey, I heard they named the lung disease a Valley." I'm like, oh, so like the only place she could have gotten that was from mainstream media up here in Canada. Unbelievable. I mean,
See, that's not what. Actually, I got the phone call from my parents too. I got the phone call from my parents and from my brother, right? Because they were buying into what they were seeing in mainstream media. My mother, right? Are you going to be okay vaping? Is that going to? It's not going to hurt you, is it? It's not going to. And I had to explain to her what was going on. My brother, hey, is it safer for me like to not to like go back to smoking at this point? I'm like, no, absolutely not. Stay on vaping, right?
right.
Because they drank the Kool-Aid.
And
And
then,
I could only imagine how many people that did not have a P Busardo to call and calm down and say, you know, it's okay, continue to vape. How many of those went back to smoking? I bet you there's a lot.
well, thank
Bet
you
you there's a
for
lot.
bringing that up. That happens to be the very next thing I've got here, Phil. This was out yesterday. Column regulations on vaping causing smokers to return to cigarettes. New data
How's
from
that for a segue?
yeah, exactly. Great segue. New data from tobacco company Altria reveals that older vapers are returning to their deadly cigarette habit. The switch follows a months-long media ambush driven by well-funded grassroots anti-vaping efforts. States began regulating retail e-cigarette outlets, often banning vape devices, making the products difficult to access. Older smokers who had switched to e-cigarettes are turning back to traditional cigarettes because of negative news coverage and regulatory crackdowns on vaping. Marlboro maker Altria Group Inc. said, quote, over the last several months, we've observed an increase in the number of age 50 and older smokers in the cigarette category, quote. CEO, an increase, right. And the CEO said that told investors on Altria's first quarter earnings conference call, quote, we believe these smokers had previously switched to e-vapor products, but recently returned to cigarettes due to negative publicity and regulatory and legislative developments in the e-vapor category. The new laws banning the sale of e-cigarette products went into effect a few weeks ago in New York State. While consumers can still use vape products legally, it is illegal for stores to sell them. And you can walk into any gas station in New York State and you can get yourself a pack of Newports, Campbell's, or Marlboros, but you can't get your favorite vape flavor today. So that's the crux of it. There's big tobacco saying, hey, if you're over 50, come back, baby. Come back.
Yep. Yeah, I've said for a long time that vaping is something that it was grassroots, right? We created it. Guys like me, Dimitri, Nick Grim Green, Scott, I get you 69, the guys who have been doing this for a long time, Grim even before me. It's like almost like I feel like it's my child, right? And I'm unable to see my child live up to its full potential, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Right. Because I know what my child is capable of. My child is capable of curing cancer for hundreds of thousands of people. And you're not going to let my child live up to its potential. So, that really disgusts me. And it disgusts me that we've built this industry via forums and Facebook groups and YouTube groups, and we've created this thing, and then here comes big tobacco, and putting their products in there. Let me tell you something. If there was no vapor industry that was created by us, I truly believe that big tobacco would not have vapor products right now. I truly believe that. And if they believed in their vapor products so much, if they truly cared about tobacco harm reduction, then they would have their vapor products and they wouldn't have cigarettes.
Let me ask you this. You just mentioned tobacco harm reduction.
Yeah.
In all of our interviews that we've been doing with public health now over the last 4.5 years, to this day, there's many of them will just throw their hands up and say, look, there's a huge chunk of us that just will not accept, tobacco harm reduction as a viable, as viable for cigarettes and vaping. They just don't get it. They don't get it.
Yeah, the quit or die.
Or it's or there's something dogmatic about it. And so why do you think it is that there's this huge chunk of people in public health that will not accept vaping as a tool for harm reduction?
Well, could it be that public health has a lot to lose if people stop dying of smoking related illness? You know, Brent, nothing would surprise me at this point. Nothing. I was never a conspiracy theorist, right? I never believed in, those stories that are being told at the water fountain. I never bought into any of that. Being in this industry has made me look at things way, way different. Way, way different.
Mm.
So, I mean, public health, they want their jobs, they want their income, they want their revenue. Their income, their jobs, their revenue kind of depend on people being sick, right?
Yeah.
And you think about it. Think about this. If I can go like that and wipe out cancer, cancer's gone. Cancer is gone. Right? Boom. Or maybe even with this. Boom. Look, boom. Cancer's gone. Right? That's a fantastic thing. And it would also crush our economy. Hospitals closed, jobs lost. Business is gone. Think about that. Think about if we were to just by the snap of a finger cure cancer. Think about the economic impact that that would have. It would be crushing, right? So you gotta wonder. Like even with you got the American Cancer Society. As far as I know, compared to a cigarette, there's like an infinitesimal amount of carcinogens in this product.
Mm.
And yet we can't get, why is the American Cancer Society not on a podium somewhere singing zippity doodah about vaping products? Why? Why is that?
So
I mean, what do you like? Does the American Cancer Society is it the Cancer Society because you want to keep cancer around so that you continue to have jobs, or is it the Cancer Society because you want to truly get rid of it? Because if you want to truly get rid of it, here's a solution for hundreds of thousands of smokers out there who just can't get off of cigarettes using the standard cessation products, the standard FDA approved cessation products. So it's frustrating, Brent. I've been harboring a lot of anger just for your show. I hope you appreciate it.
Oh no, very much so. I mean, honestly, the amount of ranting that we did during the main part of the COVID lockdown certainly pissed off a lot of our viewers, but we had to do it. We had to get our opinion out while it was happening. And I hate to say it, but, we had John Glauser on. He does some analysis for us, as well as being, obviously the CEO of Demand Vape, which is our top,
Vape, yep.
Top supporter. But we have him on from time to time just to be John Glauser and to provide some analysis. And he joined me on the very first day of the lockdown, March 14th. And the things that we predicted in that episode have come to pass completely. Really? And we don't want to be right about these things. But here we are finding out now that that the 80% of people who have it it's very rare for them to even transmit it. It's just sickening because the catastrophe is not the virus. It was the response. And I think that the visceral reaction that I and others like John and maybe you can speak to this in a second. If you didn't have that visceral reaction the moment that the totalitarian lockdown dropped on you, then you're not going to ever fully understand where we were. We saw the horror, and it had nothing to do with the virus. And so now, we're still not. That day, I said, I'm not even worried so much about the economics in the end because those will sort itself out. Obviously, it's horrible, but a lockdown like this and the chaos that gets created, the opportunity for bad actors to then get involved is huge. We're talking World War style here. And I said, Antifa and Black Lives Matter are not going to sit this out. And they sure in the heck didn't. So I'm with you on the anger part. I've got a lot of it. But, let's step away because I do have an interesting answer to your question about why. And it's one that I've not yet shared with our audience. And I can say that it's not even fully developed yet. It's really new. So let me just kind of ask a couple questions just so we can set it up. But
okay.
Yes or no that public health has been demonizing smokers for decades?
Yes.
So yes or no, as a part of the demonization of smokers has been the demonization of tobacco companies?
Yes.
So it's a chicken and the egg. Which one happens first? Is it the demonization of big tobacco first, and thus then the demonization of the smoker, and then the vapor comes around, and that demonization just flows down like water?
Right.
So I don't know how much of the demonization of vaping is related solely to, say, vaping. I believe in a way that, okay, so I'm trying to do this without being political, but it's hard for me not to. So, trigger warning.
You not be political?
I know,
Okay.
I know.
Interesting. Okay. Go ahead.
Trigger warning. I'm about to use the word progressives. So progressives want to socially engineer a better man. They want to create a utopia on Earth. And this is what public health does. They are a fundamental part of it. I believe that they damned big tobacco, much like, as we know, they damn you if you say mispronounce somebody. You can just mispronounce somebody on Twitter and your life is over. You get
Oh my
fired.
God, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
How many? There's just too much to go through. It's just clearly that as an ideology, the herd, the group, they damn you and you are gone, done. You're erased. There is no redemption. Now, the left loves the concept of redeeming criminals. If you're in jail, we can rehabilitate you. If you're a murderer, we can rehabilitate you. Let's open the doors and let them all out because we can rehabilitate them. They seem to be able to rehabilitate a ton of people except for those that they damned. If you're white conservative and you're damned. If you are, a cop, you're damned. If you are big tobacco, you are damned. And those they damn are irredeemable. And so if that's the case, vaping poses a threat because it threatens to redeem big tobacco. Because if big tobacco were to embrace the technology, they could actually redeem themselves by moving all their business or much of it or whatever over to vaping. They see it as a threat to as a redemption issue. They're not prepared to redeem big tobacco. It would mean giving up their biggest catch. Does that make some sense?
It does. And it's a really interesting perspective. And again, it's one of the reasons why I don't like to see big tobacco playing in our sandbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we there, it's like, then we get grouped with them. I don't want to be grouped with them. I want to be grouped with the grassroots movement that was vaping that we created. We are not big tobacco, right? I mean, yeah, it's great because I mean, if you truly believe in harm reduction, whether that harm reduction comes from me or whether it comes from big tobacco, I mean, that's still a good thing. Somebody's not going to die, right? That's a good thing. But I hate being grouped in with the person that's not only selling you, the vape product, but here's the cigarette too.
Right.
We don't have the cigarette too. We don't. Our industry never had the cigarette too. They do. I don't want to be grouped with them.
And I agree entirely. It's just that public health has never been able to separate them. The activist groups have never been able to separate them from day one.
Well, in reality, public health has never been able to separate nicotine from smoking, right?
True. Yeah, nicotine has been damned in the exact same way. So if you look at heroin, they've never damned heroin in the way that they've damned nicotine. And that a huge part of that is because one of their protected classes is a heroin user, like the homeless, drug addicted heroin user, right? They don't have any care for the 50,000 people in the U.S. that died last year of fentanyl overdoses. They don't care about that because the people that were dying are not a part of their protected classes, but the people who use heroin are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all frustrating. Lately, I'm really kind of disgusted with, the split and the divide that we see, in the country. And I think it's just being perpetuated by mainstream media. It's being perpetuated by our own government. I think both sides are being children. I think both, I don't even like to, classify myself as left or right, Democratic, Republican. I don't want that anymore. I don't think it works anymore, because once you say you're something, you're grouped in with everything that group is supposed to believe in, right? I don't want to be like, I'm almost wondering if an independent wouldn't be a better choice at this point. It's really disgusting what's going on. Very sad. I'm very sad about it. What's happening?
How's it been in your area with regards to the riots and stuff like that?
There was some peaceful protests in the Fort Myers area and the Tampa area. I think there was something in the Miami area. As far as I know, that's about it. That's about it.
So again, just making sure that everybody understands the reason why we're talking about this stuff is because it's from public health in COVID, public health and the riots. That's what I'm going to get to here in a second. And public health and vaping. Public health is the biggest enemy of vaping. And so we must look at what they're doing elsewhere. Completely 100%. So now, this came out last week on June 5th. Over 1,000 health professionals sign a letter saying don't shut down protests using coronavirus concerns as an excuse. So then if you look through the list, I mean, it's NYU, it's Harvard, it's Yale Public Health, Boston University School of Public Health. I mean, these are the schools of public health in the U.S. that have trained public health and are still training public health. A group of health and medical colleagues has penned an open letter to express their concern that protests around the United States could be shut down under the guise of coronavirus health concerns. A week ago, they're arresting people for not following social distancing. A week later, they're going, it doesn't matter because the race issues are more important than coronavirus. The letter, which went on to draw more than 1,200 signatures, focuses on techniques to reduce harm to people protesting racial injustice. Quote, we created the letter in response to emerging narratives that seem to malign demonstrations as risky for the public health because of COVID-19. According to the letter's writers, many of whom are part of the University of Washington's Division of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. That's Fauci. Quote, instead, we wanted to present a narrative that, by the way, when anybody uses a narrative, that's postmodernism and they're lying through their teeth. The narrative is not truth, it's a story. I mean, instead, we wanted to present a narrative that prioritizes opposition to racism as vital to the public health, including the epidemic response. We believe that the way forward is not to suppress protests in the name of public health, but to respond to protesters' demands in the name of public health, thereby addressing multiple public health crises. It's typical communist crap. This is it. Yeah. If you're going to find where communist, grows, like fungus, it's going to be from public health inside. So, I mean, this is crazy. So they're saying that systemic racism is a public health concern, and it's a public health concern that is bigger and larger than coronavirus.
Yeah, that's a really it's a really touchy subject. It's a tricky thing to talk about. I think what's going on in the country right now is kind of important. And there years ago, I might have looked at some of and you may not agree with this, Brent, but I would have looked at some of this violence and I would have said, look, I understand the peaceful protests, but I don't understand the violence, and I don't understand I don't understand that side of it, right? But you know what now, because you're saying, well, we're talking about this because of vaping and public health, right? I'm talking about this for a different reason. I'm talking about because now I kind of understand it. I get it on a very, very small level, extremely small level. Don't take what I'm saying the wrong way, but on a small level, I understand the anger and the frustration now. Right? Because when you do things the right way and when you play by the rules and you follow the rule book, where does it get you? It gets you I was going to curse. It gets you a flavor ban in New York, and it gets you a flavor ban in New Jersey, and it gets you a flavor ban here and there and everywhere, So now I kind of get it, because you get so angry and you get so frustrated that you're like, what else, what more can I give? What more can I do? Legally, what more can I do? I mean, you're driving me to the point where I'm going to lose my cool, right? And I think that's what you're seeing right now. So maybe yesterday I would not have understood it. Today I do now.
Well, fair enough. I mean, I think this discussion could be had, and you don't even need to touch race as an issue. If you want to take, I mean, so we've titled this show today, Mind-Bending Hypocrisy. This is the mind-bending hypocrisy beyond all hypocrisies, because the force that was used to lock down 1 billion people and the subsequent propaganda that went with it, the $6 trillion in debt that, is dropped on us, and the destruction of people's businesses and lives and the loss of life that comes from that, either the coronavirus was serious enough for that action or it wasn't. And we've learned that it wasn't. So, and this happened last week. So this is before I could say definitively that WHO completely, totally, botched this, and sold it, shoved us up a river, down the river.
By the way, I don't know, I call CDC, ZDC, Zero Disease Control. Dimitri now calls WHO the World Harm Organization. I thought you should know that.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, regardless of the issue in which whether or not there's a valid reason for people to be looting and stuff, I think the protests are fine. Let's just leave the looting out. If the either coronavirus is a deadly threat and there must be social distancing and you can't be out in groups and we still don't have all the businesses open yet, and so forth and so forth and so on, either it is or it isn't. So for public health to completely go like they're basically saying, don't believe us ever again, I guess. I mean, how can you believe them? It has nothing to do with the race issue. It has everything to do with we're supposed to be able to trust public health. And the force in which they used to destroy the economy, steal people's liberty, and lock them into the houses, they are not using anywhere near that same level of force against these people who are out.
Yeah.
So, so what it says is it's two different kinds of justices. And so, somebody who's protesting, right, a person of color is going to laugh and go, yeah, Whitey, well, that's what we've been talking about for years. There's two different kinds of justices. So you could laugh and say, well, all you people out there that are complaining about this, now you're experiencing the kind of justice that we've been experiencing forever.
The other thing too, Brent, like, what can they really do? What can they really do, right? I've heard public health say we're concerned, with the protests, but what are you going to do? You can't shut them down. It's just going to inflame, the situation. So it's almost like it just needs to run its course. The message needs to be heard. The changes need to be made. But really, public health stepping in and using what they did to create the economic crisis, that's just going to inflame things, and nothing would get accomplished. Well, but I understand. But I understand the double standard too. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the entire world's economy here. I mean, this isn't just an issue. This is an issue that affects all the protesters too. They have to work inside this economy. If everything falls apart, they're not going to get better justice than they've been getting. Everybody gets worse justice. I mean, that's what leveling does. Leveling doesn't ever lift anybody up. It always crushes. And so we'll all end up in with less justice. And
could very well be.
Vapers want justice. And so you've got to see who we're asking for justice from. And, public health didn't need to come out with this letter, right? But doing it is, it's virtue signaling beyond, at the highest levels, excusing away, and obviously, clearly, they know that coronavirus, when they wrote this letter, is not as deadly as they're saying. Otherwise, they would have to continue along, because if bodies start dropping in 2 weeks because of the protests, it will look really bad for public health. So they must have forecasted that is indeed not going to happen.
Well, so say that again. If bodies start dropping, you're
Right.
talking
They're
about
public health, and they've been forecasting all of these deaths. That's what shut down the entire
right,
Western world, right? So here
right,
we are saying, no, these protests are much more important than social distancing for coronavirus. So they must have information and understanding and knowledge that says coronavirus is not as transmittable or not as deadly or whatever. Because if
right,
anybody covers their ass more than, there's nobody more than public health. So
right.
they would not come out with this letter unless they were pretty certain that in 2 weeks from now, there wouldn't be tens of thousands of new coronavirus deaths.
Right. Well, I agree with you. I think public health looks bad either way, right? I mean, God forbid people start dropping because of because of the protests and because the social distancing isn't happening, or states are opening back up, right? If that causes more deaths, then that kind of makes public health look bad because they did not enforce what they've been saying. Now, in the same sense, if all of these protests and the states opening up doesn't add to the numbers, that makes public health look bad too, because now, based on their recommendations, we don't have the economy that we had before. So I think they're going to look bad either way.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard. I mean, I've had huge respect for public health. I mean, for a long time, and I've been spending a lot of time trying to really understand the way some of them think. So in order to maybe try to find some way to bridge that gap with regards to
Oh,
vaping.
it's interesting that you say that you had respect for public health. See, like I was that way with the CDC, right? Those three letters, when I would hear those three letters, it was like, oh yeah, that's that serious group that's going to protect us from any disease. Like they're the ones that are going to get in there and they're going to stop it, and it's not going to happen, right? That was what those three letters represented to me.
Mm-hmm.
They don't anymore. They mean nothing to me. They mean the exact opposite. They didn't do their jobs. They didn't pass out the right information. They didn't pass out the right information with vaping. They didn't really do it with coronavirus. It took them too long. They dragged their feet with a volley and telling the truth about that. They're dragging their feet with this too,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's where
Sure.
the public outcry should be. That's where again, kind of like what I said at the very beginning, the fact that that organization isn't taken to task is mind bending.
Well, it's pretty hard because the CDC has been revered. I think most people don't know this, and my numbers I'm just drawing from memory here, but they're pretty darn close. The CDC is responsible for setting up the CDC in over 60 countries. So not only is the CDC, but for instance, in 1983, the CDC, the US CDC, set up China's Center for Disease Control and 59 other countries. So their tentacles are right there. They set up all the protocols, everything. So
Right.
all the countries look back to the CDC, not the WHO. The WHO is set up by the CDC. So the CDC in Atlanta is really in charge here. And if they've got ideological blinders on, it's going to hurt the whole world. And I do believe that is the case. I mean, for one, we still don't know how many people were infected. They didn't have the tests. They didn't do randomized testing for weeks from the president on down. We're just going, you're the CDC, pick 20 cities, send some surveyors to 20 cities, get 1,000 samples from, in 20 cities, and then boom, we'll know, we can then randomize it, use your models, and we can know how many people have it. They didn't want to know because that would have been the denominator in which it would have, crushed the mortality rate down. And they wanted that number up at like 2 and 3 to convince people that it was going to be millions dead. They did not do randomized testing, and they still haven't done randomized testing. And then they set the tests out, and the tests were spoiled and wrong. Eventually, they started doing the tests, and as we learned 2 weeks ago, the CDC took the antibody test and the other test, and they put the results together and mixed them, and then this was just 2 weeks ago. All of the testing that the CDC's done, they purposefully mixed the two different kinds of test results, making them completely unusable.
Hmm.
Where's mainstream media going nuts over that? They're not. This is fact.
Yeah.
So they clearly don't want to do any testing. What people also don't know about the CDC is that you can go back through other epidemics throughout the last 20, 30 years, including AIDS, and CDC's in charge of those stats. You'll find that almost in every single case, they didn't have stats as the epidemic was going. And then after the epidemic was done, it took them like 2 years of political wrangling and coming out with the stats. And then there'd be interest groups from, their interest groups, blah, blah, this, and then they revise the stats. It's complete. I don't know where a CDC stat is good. I had Dr. Brad Rodu on 2 months ago because I don't trust the smoking stats. This was before COVID, a week before COVID. I had Dr. Rodu on, and I'm going to say, I don't trust the CDC stats on smoking. It stays the same. 480,000 people are going to die this year because of smoking. Every year it's the same. Every year it's the same. And he tells me, and told our audience, that those stats, the CDC doesn't even have access to the data. The data all comes from a data set from 1983 that the Cancer Society provides each year.
Interesting.
So
interesting.
This is not conspiracy theory. It's just, looking at what's going on. The stats,
it's just facts, it's data, right?
Yeah, the stats are not right.
I certainly hope, this taught, people something that, CDC is not to be trusted. And maybe this will, in some way, shape, or form, carry forward as we move out of, the COVID-19, as we move out of the situation that we're in right now, and people realize that this organization, public health, is not to be revered as much as we think it should be. Right? We need some independent thinkers out there giving us the truth and giving opposing views. But you know what? I don't think that's ever going to happen because it's all controlled by mainstream media, and they have an agenda, and they're going to follow their agenda, right? Right down to a television show that I really liked. I had talked to you about it. Yeah. Somebody told me about this show. And they said, "Oh, you're not going to like it because they're really anti-vaping," but it looked really interesting, right? So I checked it out on Amazon, and it's called Upload, and it's like I have a love-hate relationship with this show. I absolutely love this show, but they are so anti-vaping on the show. It drives me crazy. Again, like why isn't there some public outcry about what they're look, they have a vape ward. So the whole thing is one of the main characters, okay, is dying of vape lung. Okay, not a volley, of vape lung. And basically the way they describe it is that this person bought into what we were saying today, which is vaping is safer than smoking. He bought into that, right? So therefore he vaped, and come to find out in the future that vaping actually does do some harm. So now he's in this vape ward and he's dying of vape lung, right? That's got to be paid placement. So how else would that get there? How else would that get there? Right? And again, I hate the fact that I like the show. I hate the fact that I like the show.
Fair enough. It's crazy. A vape ward is, that's just, it is like, well, right. So in the entertainment business, in the brand business, and I was explaining this to you on our pre-interview call. So one of the things that I did in between taking a break on content production for a good, 8 or 9 years was work directly for some of the biggest brands in the world, partnering them with entertainment properties. So if you've seen Star Wars on a can of Pringles, that's my deal. I've done Star Wars in 11 countries, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King in 4. I've done Daytona 500, Super Bowl, so forth and so on. And when I first started doing that work in LA with this particular company, I started on 9/11. My very first day was 9/11. Wow. So, and it was a whole different media world back then. And what 9/11 did was immediately chop like 60% of the ad purchases across all broadcast and cable networks. They got canceled, of course. And so the studios were suffering, the networks were suffering, and for the first time, they became very open to integrating brands into their television shows. And more than just product placement, what we were really advocating and pioneering was what's called organic placement. That's where the product or the issue is organically integrated into the narrative of the show, into a storyline. So it's much better than seeing a can of Pringles on a Seinfeld counter. The next best thing would be, say, if it's a Hoover placement, okay, that's fine for vacuum, but you want to see, you know, Rachel from Friends actually using the Hoover vacuum.
Sure.
If you're trying to do something like vaping, anti-vaping, you do it this way. There's a vape ward. The guy's got a vaping lung illness, and you know, and exactly that. We thought it was safe, and now look what happened. I mean, that's organic placement inside. Somebody paid for that.
It has to be, right? It's no different from like you said, like an Audi or an Audi sitting there. You know, if somebody walks by an Audi, there's the Audi got there somehow, right? It was paid. And obviously this is just a paid placement by some organization, right? That is interfering with my enjoyment of the television program.
Well, I'm surprised you can still watch TV at all, Phil. I have to be honest with you, because it's pretty bad. So, okay, so I'm just trying to make sure that we handle any of the deep dark stuff. You know, I mean, I think we have. I mean, let me ask you this. Now, back in the day, when I first had you on the show, which I think, you know, that was the big time that I had you on, which was in 2016. It was in August of 2016. We talked through some issues. The episode was called Vape Apocalypse, and that was, you know, the very first big scare, you know, the 2016 scare. I think August 8th or something like that was Vape Apocalypse. Yeah. And we did a web interview with you that we released. I think it was about Trump. What are your thoughts? I'm going to dig this up right now and see if we can find it. I think it's short. So you can try to run it here right now. But
excuse me while I squirm.
Yeah, for our friends out there, I mean, where are you at? Because I mean, we've got a couple of political questions still left, because politics is involved with vaping over the next 6 months.
Do you remember what I said if Trump won? Do you remember what I said?
Well, we're going to play it. So if you want to give me a second, we can just wait till we play it.
Well, oh Christ! I think I said that it would be the most interesting 4-year reality TV show we've ever seen.
Oh, I think you did.
I think that's what I said.
I think you did say that.
You're really gonna play it?
Well, if I can find it quickly here, I'll play it.
Okay, good. Well, let's not find it.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to find it quickly here. It's my website's a little slow, but you know, conspiracy theorists, right? You know, our website's getting hacked. I'm just kidding. There we go. And there it is. Yes. So the question was, here we go. Is Trump good for vaping? Hear what Phil Busardo has to think.
Oh, good Lord. Let's see. What did I say?
All right.
Oh my God. You know, listen, I don't know who's going to get in, but I will say this on the vote Trump idea. Should Donald Trump get into office, it will be the most interesting 4-year reality TV show we have ever seen, ever. So I'm not sure. Well, he can't, you know what? And that's kind of what I like about him, is that he's not presidential. He just says what's on his mind. In the meantime, these other guys are talking and you don't really know what they're saying, right? At least with Trump, he just kind of, there it is. You know, I'd like to think they would be. Here's why. Because Trump is a businessman, right? He's a businessman and he wants to bring jobs back to America. The vaping industry is creating jobs in America. Why would he not be behind it? And then if you add the science on top of it, and he would actually listen to the science, then maybe it could be beneficial to have him in there.
And that was August 27th, 2016. So there you go.
Well, it certainly has been the. By the way, I look much better now than I did back then, don't I?
Well, you look very good. And in fact, let me just point out too that your memory is excellent.
Oh, believe me, it's not. But I happen to remember that one thing. So what's the question now? Like, where am I today?
Well, now that we've played that, so that's fine. So just to set up, because of course his reelection campaign is starting. How much should vapers be engaged with Trump in this second round? I mean, does he deserve vapers' support? Is he the only option for support?
I don't know. Look. I don't know, because you know what? They say one thing, they do another thing,
Yeah.
right? I don't know who to believe anymore. I honestly don't. The one thing that I really thought, that he would help the industry, help vaping. Okay, I'm just talking about vaping right now. Okay, where he would help is that he wanted to get rid of regulation. That's where I thought he would help the most.
Sure.
Because I mean, bans and getting rid of products, and it's regulation. So I mean, if you're for getting rid of regulation, taking government out of the way, then you should be for this. And again, I mean, I'll go back to the thing. Like, yeah, I know, I understand. He said, he's like, oh well, we got to protect the kids. We got to protect the kids. I understand that. You do have to protect the kids, and you are, and it's called Tobacco 21. Enforce it, and leave adults alone.
I do agree.
Because the whole thing. Look, I got this. Look, I have this. See this?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I went, on whatever I could do. The few that we had here in Florida, I was scheduled to speak at the Vape Alliance rally in Washington. Obviously, that got canceled because of COVID. That to me is frustrating.
Why?
I support the effort. I support the We Vape, We Vote effort. I'll support anything that could potentially help our industry. But when the conversation switched, when the conversation moved to jobs and votes, that pissed me off. Right? I understand why we had to go there, but it pissed me off. And here's why it pissed me off. Because that should not be the topic of conversation. The topic of conversation should be that we are going to save lives. This product can save lives. Damn it, that's the end of the story. That should be enough. If we can save lives with this product, that should be the end of the story. No more. No We Vape, We Vote. No loss of jobs. None of this. Right? If you truly cared about your American people, and if you cared about lives, and you want people to quit smoking, we have an alternative. We have something that is at least 95% safer than smoking. Right? So why do we even have to go? We shouldn't have to go there, because we can save lives. That should be enough.
Just to be clear, it was the tying of the jobs in with the We Vape, We Vote. It was to save the jobs, not save the lives.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty, yeah. Well, it became politics. It became about votes and voting people in and voting people out. And I understand that direction. Right? I get it. I get that that's what we have to do. Right? But we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to do that. It should just be, well, we can save lives with this product over combustible tobacco cigarettes. End of story.
So we've gone into that, vaping saves lives issue, and we're kind of pulling the bricks out from under it, not because of us, but because of what we're seeing, right? So I always look at what's happening, what's the actions, and then I work back to try to figure out the why. And so when I see that public health are not supporting vaping as a tool for harm reduction, when I see public health not believing that it saves lives, saying that it actually can kill you or hurt you or give you brain damage, it makes COVID worse. I mean, all these things that clearly it does not save lives. In fact, it can hurt. So when public health's doing all that, then I go all the way back to the start and I go, well, they don't believe that it saves lives. Either they don't believe that this tool saves lives, or they don't believe that smoking kills as many people as it does.
Yeah, one of those two things. Something that I said, and I'm glad you brought that up, because this too, they're trying too hard.
Mm,
They're trying way too hard to find something wrong with this. Think
mm,
about it, right? Because if I were to go in my refrigerator right now, and if I were to pull everything out, and I would go to the lengths that they're going through to prove that this is bad for you, I guarantee you 90% of the things in my refrigerator would kill me. Guaranteed. Because it's their goal. Their goal is to find something wrong with it. Their goal is not, think about that. Their goal is not to prove that it could save a life. Their goal is not to prove that it's better than smoking. Their goal is to find something wrong with it. And I think that's the problem. They're trying way too damn hard. I'm glad there's research, and there should be research, right? But listen to what Public Health England did. Look at some of that research. Be a little bit open-minded, a little bit, and understand that, you know what? Even if it's not bad, even if it's not good for me, I'm an adult and I can make up my own mind what I want to do. And if that's what I want to do, I should be able to do that.
that's the liberty argument. So let me
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
you, why does it seem, because it does seem that vaping as a community has a difficult time embracing the liberty argument?
You mean like my body, I can do what my
Yeah.
body.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
if you were to ask vapers where or what you can see, they would rather be in we vape, we vote than
Yeah.
this is my body and it's my right to
My body,
decide
my
what goes in it.
choice.
Yeah.
My body, my choice. I don't know. I don't know why that's never been used as an argument. Um, I honestly don't know. One of one of the things that I say is that, if somebody can go into a Starbucks and they can order whatever flavor, tasty, delicious, caffeinated beverage that they want, I should be able to have whatever flavored nicotine product that I want. I should, especially with T21 on the table.
So when it comes to we vape, we vote, do you
Mhm.
think that's still a valid line to use to drive vaping support?
I don't want to say anything negative about the campaign, because I want to see the campaign continue to go. But I don't trust or believe in any politician at this point. Not a single one to do anything that is going to protect my right to use a flavored nicotine product, or a flavored vapor product, or any vapor product for that matter, because who knows what's next. I mean, they went after the Juul flavors. Juul, just bent over and took it because we all know why, right? I mean, they're just big tobacco and they're playing the game. They're going after Puff Bar now. How long before they go after our open systems, our bigger? Who knows? Who knows?
Let me ask
Will
you,
will
with the PMTA looming, I guess, I mean, it's been looming now forever.
Yeah.
With it looming, and then you've got some states, of course, that have just gone fully just tobacco flavors. I mean, what's the future for vape shops in those states that can only sell tobacco flavors? And
Yeah.
then let's roll that into, eventually, is PMTA just not going to just kill all vape shops?
Right. Well, first of all, I think we need, and I don't care who it comes from. I don't care if it comes from big tobacco, if it comes from inside of our industry, right? We need a PMTA to go through, flavored, or even unflavored, but flavored preferably, because you know why? That is a statement that says vaping is safer than smoke. We have proved it, and we got the PMTA to prove it. So that should open the door for more players. Unfortunately, it's cost prohibitive for all the players to move forward. And that breaks my heart, Brent. It breaks my heart that some of the people that started this industry, right, aren't going to be able to hang in there until the end of, or wherever it might go, because they simply just don't have enough money. Right? That really disgusts me. That breaks my heart. That's what's going to happen. Right? But I think a PMTA is really important. because again, that's going to make the statement that yes, we've been telling you that it is safer than smoking. It is. We got the PMTA, right? As far as the states that don't have the ability to sell flavored products, again, that's breaking my heart too. I know it's got to be very, very difficult for them, but uh, the only advice or the only thing that I would say is try to spin it in a positive way. I mean, if you have to say, hey, we got rid of the kids, it's an adult thing now, right? Come on in, let me help you quit smoking, right? Now it's
Mm.
for the adults. I, I don't know. Maybe that's a possibility, right? And also, when you say tobacco flavors, I keep hearing tobacco flavors. I mean, what is a tobacco flavor? And I have to read the letter of the law. I mean, I'm sure Dimitri knows about this much better than I do, right? But if you go and look at pipe tobacco flavors, there's a lot of flavors, and those are tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, those are tobacco flavors, right? That's the way I see it anyway. So
Yeah, I
like, I
mean,
don't.
it's weird. It's weird. I mean, they've got a way in which they use these words to, capture legally how to do flavors. It's like characteristics, I believe, is like
Right.
part of the language.
Well,
And
I remember my father before he quit smoking because he had a heart attack and the doctor said you got to quit smoking or you're going to die. I mean, that's pretty good motivation right there. He smoked a pipe, a tobacco pipe, and I remember the tobacco that he used to use because it smelled delicious. It was rum and maple.
oh,
That was the name of the tobacco,
oh.
rum and maple. Right? I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't a few e-liquids out there called rum and maple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, pipe tobacco is just, I mean, it is just fantastic. Let's just take a quick moment here for me to just pop over to our support website. That's at support.regulatorwatch.com. And obviously, it's tough for everybody out there, and RegWatch is downstream. So if you do get a chance, we would love you to take a quick visit over to our site. Here it's our secure site. And of course, we promote fact-based science. I know that's crazy that we had to actually say fact-based science because science is supposed to be fact-based. But of course, we have to, really call that out because science today is just not based in fact. We counter misperceptions on vaping. We destigmatize nicotine. That's the critical thing. Destigmatizing nicotine could fundamentally change the opposition to vaping. And then, of course, hold researchers, regulators, and reporters to account. We're over 300 videos, 5 years covering this issue. We've had the biggest names in public health and in advocacy on the show. If you get a chance, please go and give us a one-time support or maybe tick that monthly, support monthly, and join some of the great people and companies that have been out there. And again, I'm going to just mention, Demand Vape and John Glauser. Without his support, we would not be here. And if you do get a chance, and if you are somebody that buys from Demand, make sure you thank him and anybody at Demand for their continued support for RegWatch at this time. And of course, great companies, Divine and Stealth, Sticky Canuck, Flavor Crafters, Vape Nation, great companies. Thank you so much for your support. And if you do happen to patronize these businesses, that'd be great. So, and you, my friend, you were asking me if Inikin was in the shot there, and it is. And let's give them some love.
Absolutely. Several years ago now, Dimitri and I were looking to. We actually got courted by several of the Chinese companies to work with them on like a line of products for us, and we chose Inikin. We chose Inikin because we felt that Inikin never really lost sight of why we do what we do. Okay, look, all the Chinese companies are in it to make money, right? But they never lost sight of the smoker. They've always had stuff for the smoker. I can remember one of the things that we do is when we get like a positive letter, thanks to an Inikin product, I don't smoke anymore. We share those with each other. And George, who's one of the owners, this was when I was in China. I sent that message to him, and he just stopped working and he leaned back and he said, it really makes me feel good that we're helping people's health. Right. So, I mean, that's the kind of guy that's behind that company. All right. I believe of all the companies that they have done things the right way the most, and probably to their detriment too, right? But I can't thank them enough for the opportunity that they've given me and Dimitri with our platform line of products, and with more to come. We got some exciting stuff coming too.
That's fantastic. And that partnership between you and Dimitri, certainly gone well.
You mean the love affair, the
The bromance?
the domestic partnership? Yeah, the bromance. Look, other people have tried. Nobody's lasted as long as me and Dimitri. And we've had our ups and downs. Let me tell you something. We really have. We've had our breakups, and we've had our reunions and everything. We've had our fights, and we've had our differences, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge because we're both really, really stubborn. We're both Mediterranean stubborn guys, right? I tend to overreact, and take like everything like way too seriously. And when I design like all the way up here, and he's the one that kind of reels me in and says, "Relax, you're overreacting. Calm down, and let's design
I've heard those
over
words
here."
from him too.
What's that?
I've heard those exact words from him too.
Oh, really?
Relax, calm down.
Oh yeah. But it's been great. I mean, like I said, I don't think I could have gone as far as I did without him, and hopefully he would say the same thing about me, right? And I think he would.
Excellent duo. Yeah, and
Yeah.
both of you, I think the entire industry has a lot to thank you
And
for.
we've never lost focus. We've never lost focus in why we are doing what we're doing, right? And that's to help people not smoke. And we're going to continue that.
Well, and that's a really good place, I think, for us to cap it off. I want to thank you so much, Phil, for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Brent. I hope I wasn't too dark on this. I think on the first interview, I was a little bit happier. I was in a better place. Vaping was in a better place, I hope I wasn't too dark, but I am passionate about this industry. I care about this industry. I care about the people who are involved with this industry, and I care about the smokers who need to find this industry to live a longer, healthier life, right? So I truly care about this. And when I see what's going on, it frustrates me and it angers me. And, I thank you for the opportunity to allow me to vent a little bit. Thank you.
Totally. This is the show to vent. That's why we call it Reg Rant sometimes. So totally. Not too dark, Phil. It's dark times out there. And I think more plain speaking is what's needed. And, if we ruffle some feathers, we do. And hopefully we get some dialogue going with inside the vaping community.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Absolutely.
Well, just hang tight right there for a second. And that is it for this edition of RegWatch. And, I want to thank you all for showing up. It's really a treat to have Phil join us. And wait a minute, before I actually do this, I just have to cue my closing. Either I do it now or it's going to be right after. So head over to our Facebook. Head over to support.regulatorwatch.com and consider making a financial contribution to our vaping coverage. It's easy. Dig in your wallet and find a few dollars and toss them our way. You'll be happy you did, and so will we. And while online, don't forget to like us on Facebook and to follow us on Twitter. For regulatorwatch.com, I'm Brent Stafford.